Good evening, everyone. I think we'll try and get this this section of the evening underway. I hope you managed to find your way to the house room. I hope you had a good conversation with the head of house, with tutors, and also with other parents. And we're going to kind of wrap up the evening now with a bit of insight into the sixth form. I'm shortly going to be handing over to Simon James, who is our head of sixth form, because there's quite a lot to think about over the next couple of years. It's quite a busy period of time for the students, and perhaps quite a lot for parents to get their heads around as well. So I hope you'll find this evening useful. I wanted to kick off with a few introductory comments, because it's been great to see your sons making their way into the sixth form. It was fantastic. Day one, they returned looking so smart in their suits, and so on, very grown up. I know some of them had eked out the life of a blazer as long as humanly possible. So they looked really, really smart. Then, of course, we were hit with those tropical temperatures. So I even had to say they were allowed to take their ties and jackets off. But they've made a really positive start around the school as well. And on Tuesday, we had our sponsored walk. And I was walking with the lower school, and there were lots of sixth formers helping encourage those boys along round what is quite a long course. When you're 11 or 12 or 54, 10 miles is quite a long way, and the boys were so positive and encouraging, and they were great role models really for the younger pupils. So I think they've made a really terrific start, and I'm really excited that soon they'll be benefiting from new facilities as well. The pavilion, which is next door to this building, which will provide a new dining space. I was going to say that will open. That is due to open immediately after half term. We're feeling confident, and it's going to be a great asset to us, especially around lunchtimes, in terms of improving that experience, reducing queues, and freeing up a bit of time for the students at lunchtime, which I think will be a real positive. And we're also coming to the end of our projects in Austin and Crescent House, which will offer much improved facilities for our boarders in those houses, but also for the day pupils who will be able to enjoy the communal spaces that will be available to them. So lots going on, clearly. We've also got open day to look forward to on Saturday, and the lower sixth will be playing a big role there in terms of guiding people around, working on the various activities around the school, and I'm very grateful that they'll be there for that. But I'm going to move on straight now to Mr. James, who's got lots of information to share with you. I should say we are recording this session, so you'll be able to watch it over and over again. But if you miss anything, the information will be there, and the information will be shared in different forms with you as well. So over to you, Mr. James.
Well, thank you, Headmaster, and thank you for being here. There is something really reassuring to me that the front two rows of seats are left empty. You're as bad as the boys, but thank you very much for being here. I will do my absolute best to keep this short. He says, clutching pages and pages of notes, but I will aim to get us done by 8:30 or so. As Mr. Windsor said, I'm Simon James. I'm the head of sixth form. So that means I've got the privilege, and it really is a privilege, of seeing the lower sixth through their next 2 years. Two of the most exciting years of many people's lives, I think. So that's fantastic. A particularly warm welcome to those of you who are new to Abingdon, and also those of you watching this remotely on catch-up, particularly our overseas parents. So we tried to design life in the Abingdon sixth form as one of transition between a school pupil and a university student or an employee. And what I'd like to try and do is explain how we go about aiming to do that by gradually letting go of the reins a little bit, supporting and scaffolding what's going on, as well as, pushing them to get going and become a little bit more independent. So I'm going to explain that through what you will see that is familiar, as well as what is going to feel new and perhaps a bit of a stretch over the next 2 years. So for starters, and why the evening's been structured as it has been actually, I want to absolutely reiterate that the lower sixth absolutely remain part of their house. And in fact, we hope they're going to go on and become leading lights there over the next couple of years, become those role models that they used to look up to themselves when they were in third year, taking on those positions of responsibility. Many of them have already become a mentor to a new third year, which is lovely. Some might have taken on leading roles in house singing, which is great too. As long as nobody's chosen Bohemian Rhapsody again this year, yeah, we can't do that again. That was dreadful. But look, generally, we're looking for them to give something back there, okay? The tutor remains your kind of first port of call and your most important contact, and hopefully you've had a chance to meet them this evening. Anything that concerns you or that you'd like guidance with, please don't hesitate to make contact. As I've said, the house system remains really important in the sixth form, and clearly they will have developed a relationship there, in many cases, with the heads of house, formerly known as housemasters. And having been a housemaster myself, I know that can be a point of real continuity for you as well, and that's lovely. They might be someone you might feel comfortable going to with something of a slightly more pastoral nature, personal nature, and that's fine. Clearly, there's then myself and my sixth form team, and we've got expertise surrounding careers advice, universities, admissions, gap years, things like this. We might deal with slightly more structural things, but honestly, there's no territoriality. We talk about all sorts of things together, so anyone will do. So what else will feel broadly familiar? Well, the other half, to an extent. I'm not expecting you to read all of that. Certainly, we expect them to do 2 changed sporting activities a week, and something on a Wednesday afternoon, as everybody in the entire school does. But we're gonna be encouraging them to get a bit more breadth in there, actually, and this is just illustrative of the amount of choice available and the opportunities available, and it really does kind of explode when we get to sixth form in terms of the options and the array of things available to them. And I just want to hammer home how important that broader education is to us and how much we value it. Clearly, we think it makes them just more interesting people, but you know, we've got one eye on them developing those skill sets and developing those fledgling CVs as well. In about a year's time, almost exactly, many of them will be submitting their UCAS form. And so anything that can create that richness in that application is a good thing. Now, I recognize that that can be tricky for some people, particularly those that are really invested in one single area. Maybe I'm thinking of our high-performing sports people there, but I think it would be really good to try and manage that breadth and bringing something of a maybe super curricular nature in through the other half. And we can help them do that and have those conversations, and we're used to having those conversations. Okay, in terms of reporting, you can expect a broadly similar kind of pattern of reports to what you've seen before. We've moved to a slightly more regular arrangement. So this term, for instance, you'll get a short, this half term, a short report, followed then by a long report. And you'll see how that is kind of then reflected through the rest of the year. Parents' evening is on the 29th of November. All of this will go in the weekly mailing, so don't worry. And that will be online. And one of the reasons we like to have that parents' evening there is that that's a good point to inform conversations about potentially dropping a subject just around Christmas time. Now, there's no obligation to drop a subject at that point, but that's on their mind. So those conversations tend to be ongoing in the latter part of this term. And that's an opportunity to talk to subject teachers there and get that informed decision about, okay, do I drop a subject at this point? Do I carry things forward? We continue to teach PSHCE through what is known as our Mindsets program on a Wednesday afternoon. It's a really fantastic program put together by Paul Gooding. But what is new is that we have a sixth form lecture every half term. So, for instance, next week we've got Russell Robinson coming in. He's a solicitor, advocate, does lots of talks to teenagers about the law, and he's coming in and talking about motoring law next week. His talks are always bang up to date, lots of live case studies and things, and that will be really well received. And you can see our wider program up there. So we try to change things up a little bit there. What else is new? Well, academically, sometimes not having a lesson is new. So in their week, they will have about 6 or 7 supervised study slots across a fortnight. You can expect 6 or 7 supervised studies. And that happens down in Beach Court. That is supervised, and that is high quality, dedicated time where they can get their head down in a guaranteed environment and get into some good habits. If and when they then drop a subject, they'll gain some additional study periods, and there's no compulsion to register for those. And then in the upper sixth, we don't typically have them register for those free sessions they've got in their week, although definitely there's an expectation that they're being productive in that time. So you can see there, we gradually look to let go of the reins while sort of scaffolding how things go. We recommend, in terms of independent study outside the classroom, 4 hours of independent work per subject per week, okay? So if they've got 2 subjects, which so 2 teachers in their subject, which most of the time they do, we're looking at 2 hours per teacher per week. So if they're not really kind of doing that across their supervised study and homework time, I think maybe a conversation needs to be had. If they're doing much, much more than that as well, I think they should be talking to us and trying to manage that. Maybe they're doing things in a slightly inefficient way. What else is new? Well, I think we're expecting that they're going to have longer deadlines frequently and more substantial pieces of work, particularly in the arts and humanities. So planning and forethought is going to become much more important, I would say. And the last thing I'd like to say is, look, I hope they had a great experience in middle school, and I'm sure they did. I taught some of them, so sorry about that. But I hope that there's an even greater sense of them working alongside their teachers, and that there's that two-way dialogue and sense of working shoulder to shoulder alongside one another. I hope that homework is no longer seen as something to do to keep out of trouble, and really we want them to be driving their own learning forward and asking for the advice of their teachers. We've got some internal assessments. The first of these is called the November tests. They're in November. So yeah, they're on the 13th to the 15th of November, and we'll suspend the timetable for them for a couple of days. And we like them there. They're a really useful marker to us of how they're getting on, whether things have been embedded as we might expect. And we take them pretty seriously, but we absolutely understand that they're not the be-all and end-all, because they've only been studying A-levels for 9 or 10 weeks. But they're really worth working for, and we'll let the lower sixth know that. We then have a Lent term data point, which is a slightly more light touch thing. And then the summer exams in June are a big focal point for the year, and pretty important, I would say. So we try to gauge their progress relatively rigorously on a relatively regular basis. After that initial buzz, and look, I hope there has been a buzz, and they've come home and they're talking about things over the dinner table and talking about their brand new subjects and how it's quite difficult actually, but it's also quite interesting, and there's sometimes girls in the classroom and things like this. after that initial excitement, we might have got past that now, and there might have been a couple of introductory weeks. We'll be getting into those hard yards of actually what it means to be an A-level student and getting down to those challenging things. But after a couple of months, they will get used to this, and very quickly they will be thinking about what happens after Abingdon. And that's really exciting, and that's a big part of what we offer in the sixth form, I would say. So we have got a structured and detailed and comprehensive university entrance and careers guidance program, all of which falls under this umbrella which we call After Abingdon. We've got a couple of really key members of staff overseeing these areas, and the first of whom is Michael Triff, and he looks after careers guidance and also non-UK university applications. I'd also like to flag up how strong and how worthy our links are with the Old Abingdonian Club. That's something that middle schoolers don't particularly see, but we very much kind of benefit from their help in the sixth form. We're really lucky to have amazing alumni relations, and I might be talking to some OAs in the audience. And they're enormously helpful to us, particularly through careers guidance. And I'd like to just flag up one evening, which is coming up, the OA Careers Evening, which is coming up on the 17th of November. Just to illustrate some of the things that are on offer. So here, we've got old Abingdonians coming back to school with expertise across all sorts of different fields. And the lower sixth formers will be paired up with at least 2 old Abingdonians and get to ask pretty candid questions about what their career is like, what's good about it, what's not. There'll be all sorts of great holistic ideas that evening about the modern career, as well as some pretty detailed and bespoke information for those people who've got a strong inkling as to what they want to do in the future. And we'd really like all of the lower sixth to be there to bid into that and make the most of it. It's a really high quality event, and it's just one small strand of what we offer under the After Abingdon umbrella. You can see a whole host of other things. Some of you, I'm sure, will have been through UCAS with perhaps older siblings. Many of you won't have done, and that's absolutely fine. You don't need to worry about any of that. As well as myself, I've got 6 dedicated members of staff who help specifically on university entrance, as well as the tutors who work really hard to get to know their tutees and to pull together that holistic reference with input from subject specialists. Throughout the next 2 years, we will put on lots of After Abingdon events to help guide people through that. And the first of these will happen in January. On that evening, which will probably be online, we'll invite you to an introductory talk, outline the UCAS process, that centrally administered process, as well as talk about some more nuanced things, and there'll be some breakout workshops and things. We used to run at the end of that evening an Oxbridge webinar, but we felt that actually it might be better to move that forwards. So we've pulled that forwards here to the 12th of October. So you can look out for that being advertised in the weekly mailing. We'll run the Futures Fair again in May, where we'll invite in over 40 different universities to talk to our students, and you'll be able to come along to that too if you would like. In the summer, we'll run the UCAS 360 evening, where there'll be a chance to sit down and really interrogate university plans alongside your son's tutor and look at, okay, well, how's that going, and how did the summer exams go, and what does it make sense for you to look at studying, along with feedback from subject specialists in that area as well. So, all the way through that UCAS process, we will be going by this mantra of course first and then institution second. And that's something I really, really fully believe in. We think that students that are happy and interested and well suited to their courses are going to be more motivated and ultimately gain more success. But we're not naive. We understand well the importance of employability, tariff of university, but we're really proud actually that there's no kind of archetypal Abingdonian that we're looking to push out of the door, not in any sense actually, and definitely not in terms of the university course that they go on and study. So, you won't be surprised, I guess, to see perhaps physics and engineering right up there, and economics and business, for instance, but it's interesting that last year humanities leapfrogged the pair of them and was our most popular sector. The social sciences are always popular, same with biological and chemical sciences, but we typically also have 8 or 9 linguists go off to university as well. So we really do cover the whole spectrum, the full A to Z of university courses. And I think that's a great thing in terms of, well, as one colleague put it at a meeting earlier this week, as not being a sausage factory. So I think that's a really kind of positive thing that we've got this mix of courses. You won't be surprised either by the sorts of institutions that last year's upper sixth went on to go to. But I'd like to draw your attention to the fact that overseas applications always make up a reasonable chunk of the cohort, and we have got expertise when it comes to those applications, whether that might be to the US, Hong Kong, Australia. We recognize that those are far less centralized, and Mr. Triff, again, is a fount of knowledge around that. If you are at all interested, or your son is at all interested in studying in the States, and we recognize that it can be really expensive, even outside the Ivy League, but scholarships are quite common, even for overseas students. So if you're even vaguely interested, there is an evening on the 4th of December, imaginatively titled North American Universities Advice Evening over Zoom. So please do tap into that if that is even of the remotest interest to you. I'm getting to the end, I really am. I would like to just push this message that we've been talking to them about trying to give something back. Yes, take on leadership positions, and there are lots of named positions and fancy ties that you can acquire, and that's fantastic, and a lot of them do a great job. This is our peer support lead team. There's a great deal of things going on at a house level, through partnerships, through the other half. But my message to them has been actually, it's that quiet leadership and role modeling, and actually just looking after that first year kid who's crying currently in front of me, and I'm not quite sure why, but I'm going to just make sure he's okay. That is as important to us as a community. So look, I think the start of the lower sixth is exciting and challenging in equal measure. In my experience, I think they've probably been ready for this step for quite a while. And it's really nice, perhaps, to drop a few subjects that you weren't necessarily loving in middle school. I don't know if there's any ceremonial burning of textbooks over the summer. It's more difficult with laptops, isn't it? But, yeah. That said, I think it would be naive to expect it to be fully plain sailing for the next 2 years. And it's likely that there'll be bumps in the road one way or another. And I think our message to them has to be that, if you are struggling, it's a sign of strength rather than weakness to reach out for help. And so with that in mind, I've been asked to flag up the Firefly pages around well-being, which contain a whole host of information, and also this Twitter handle, or X handle, is it now, so ab_wellbeing, which regularly posts updates about mental health and well-being. So, I really do hope that the lower sixth can be enjoyable, can be challenging, can be stimulating, both academically and in that more broad sense. And that's what we're trying to help them do and trying to set up for the next 2 years. I also hope that they leave Abingdon comfortable in their own skin and understanding themselves a little bit better, and that's part of what we're trying to do as well. Thank you very much for listening. I'll see you at one or two of the events later in the year that I've mentioned. I'll hang around down the front if anyone's got any really burning questions they'd like answering right away. Otherwise, have a really safe journey home. Appreciate your time on a Thursday evening, and yeah, thank you.